Hello, everyone. My name is Julie Rubio. My pronouns are she, her. And as president of Women in Film San Francisco Bay Area, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Conversations and Connections event, focusing on navigating self-distribution. And I'm thrilled to introduce our esteemed panelists shortly, who are sure to offer invaluable insights. Before we begin, I have an important announcement. John Reese is unable to join us today due to a medical issue, and we wish him a speedy recovery. Nevertheless, we're fortunate to have an incredible lineup of experts who are ready to share their knowledge and experience. So we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you that are new to Women in Film San Francisco Bay Area, we are a volunteer-run nonprofit organization that actively provides networking, educational, and social opportunities for over 10,000 people in film, television, digital media, and in San Francisco, the area of San Francisco. Our mission is to empower, promote, and celebrate women's creative work. To support that mission, our community cherishes diversity. We invite people of any gender, any ethnicity, national origin, range of ability, education, political perspective to join Women in Film San Francisco Bay Area. For more information on becoming a member, please go to the link in the chat. I would now like to tell you a little bit more about our esteemed panelists, Mye Hoang, Lisa Hurwitz, and Basil Shadid, renowned self-distributor experts who will reveal key strategies, challenges, opportunities, and share insight on how they took control of their self-distribution. Mye Hoang is an award-winning producer and director. Her documentary directorial debut, Cat Daddies 2021, it screened in film festivals around the world, winning many awards throughout the country. The film also received theatrical and distribution in the US and internationally. As a producer, her filmography includes the award-winning noir thriller Man from Reno, Best Feature LA Film Festival, and Spirit Award nominee for 2015. And I Will Make You Mine was at South by Southwest in 2020. Mye is also the founder and former executive director of the Asian Film Festival of Dallas and the former artistic director of the San Diego Asian Film Festival. And she's currently in post-production on her latest documentary. Lisa Hurwitz she's a director and a producer as well, of the Automat, Telluride 2021, Doc New York 2021. Lisa Hurwitz self-distributed her film through her own production, turned distribution company. So she ended up making her own distribution company, A Slice of Pie Productions, and it grossed over $250,000 in the US and box office, played for 5 consecutive months in New York City, and it arguably is the most successful theatrical and self-distributed documentary in the US since the pandemic. It's pretty impressive. Basil Shadid is an Academy Award nominated Emmy-winning content producer and writer with 20 years professional experience in story and development, production, post-production, content strategies, and technology. And he has produced everything from feature-length films to broadcast commercials, podcasts, websites, books, apps, series, and a lot of courses. So everybody that's here today, we just really thank you for being here. And I'd like to begin by asking you a few questions, and then we're going to go ahead and have the audience ask a few questions as well. Can you each speak briefly just and describe the path that led you to your self-distribution?
I'll say I don't exactly think of myself as an expert. I think of myself as a hack, and I still feel like a hack. And I think even though we all, recently have done self-distribution, I think that it's always changing. And for example, I'm self-distributing another film in January, actually a San Francisco film, and there's always like a reorientation. So I think it's as well as we all think we know, I think it's good to keep educating ourselves. So Maybe if you've done one of these before, I think that we're all going to be like learning, even me too, will be learning something new today. What brought me onto the self-distribution path was having worked on my film for years and, feeling really passionate about my film and not having found that kind of dream big distribution offer. And so the option at that point is to kind of just take a bad deal or to do it myself. And so that's how I ended up deciding to self distribute. And in terms of continuing to self distribute, well, it's not it now that I'm becoming a distributor. I don't know if in the future if it's still self distribution, but I'm continuing to distribute films because I see a lot of worthy films not getting picked up, and I have the bandwidth to occasionally, I'd say, assist and to do that, even though it's much, if you can get A24 to release your film, I'd suggest that over me.
Why?
Yeah, I'm no expert as well. It's just I'm just I just DIY everything in my life, and if I'm passionate about film and I think that there's an audience for it, I'll do it. And I've theatrically self distributed twice. My latest documentary, Cat Daddies, because obviously cats have a broad appeal. I knew that I could partner with a lot of community groups to get people out into the theater. It was really just selfish. I just really felt like it needed to be seen on the big screen. We needed to engage with the cat community and bring people together. So that was really important to me. But I'd also done this, 10 years ago, and everything's so different. But I did the same thing 10 years ago with a noir film. Again, at the time, the thinking was a theatrical release, even if it's in a few cities, would boost the value of your film once it hit VOD or, and so that was the thinking. Things have changed. I'm at a place right now with Cat Daddies where I'm not really sure if it has or will pay off in that way in the VOD space. All I can say is that I am definitely in the breaking even world. I'm not in the profit world yet. So it's still to be seen, but I hit film festivals in 2021, and so we're now 2 years later and I'm still in the breaking even world.
Yeah, I think for me, it's, self-distribution, for the films that we've done self-distribution has been like an issue of like, I tend to try to like make films that are based around a community, meaning that, and with that, the community is kind of along for the ride in the filmmaking. And when we release the film, all of a sudden we already have the community or audience that wants to see the film. Like I tend to be hyper niche about the films that I'm making, so that helps. So with that, it becomes more of an obvious choice, I guess, to self-distribute. Also, like, like I made a film about a drag queen, and named Jinx Monsoon, who at the time we made the film, like wasn't getting as much press as she's kind of gotten since then. And but like we had this massive community around this drag queen. So we were like, well, let's just utilize her community and the community of people that we built with making the film. So we skipped film festivals altogether. Theatrical was like, our version of theatrical was like a tour with performances and the film kind of wrapped together in cities where she was already popular. And VOD was like, I mean, at the time we went onto Vimeo on demand because they were giving 90% to filmmakers, and no one used their platform to like really watch films because it's not really a film distribution platform. But we were like, this is the best thing for us, and we had the audience who was like wanting the film, so we like released on there for like a limited weekend and basically made our money back in like one weekend. Although I say make our money back in one weekend, we also are like super DIY scrappy filmmakers who try to make his film for as little money as possible. and break this illusion that somehow the more money you put into the film, the more money you get back, or somehow we're going to like compete with the big, even the big indies. Like, again, like my goal is like lower the bar of like our spend and like what we can do, and build it into a community that wants the film. And therefore, like, I can hit success on the films, but like if you were to take that and then compare it to like an A24 film, for an example, like they'd be like, you know what I mean? Like, we're not even competing in their league. But it doesn't matter because we're making our money back and we get to continue to make films. So
Exactly. It doesn't matter. And if that's your way, that's the great way. Then
yeah, it works for our team. Yeah.
I've approached that mindset too with my latest film that I'm in production on now. I'm attempting to spend half of what I did on this next film then on the automat, because it, in the kind of worst case scenario where I'm, not able to sell it, then I know that I can break even on it, even easier this next time. It just kind of reduces some of the risk. So we'll see. I sort of feel like maybe some funders are skeptical. I'm curious if Basil has that experience too, but when the budget is so low, I kind of wonder, because I haven't been very successful with at least grants on this current film, but I wasn't successful with grants on the automat either, and that was so competitive.
Yeah. The only film that I've ever been successful with grants on was a film that the grantors wanted ahead of time. Like, they already knew that they wanted the film because the like director had already done so much. And so they were basically looking for our application when it came in the door. And we were successful in that. I've never, outside of that, like cold submitting to grants, I've never been successful outside of like people being like, oh, you're submitting? Great, thanks. All right, yeah, and here's your money, I don't know. I think all these systems are systems, and I think that like a lot of like filmmaking is in who you know, like whether you're like in the big leagues, the medium leagues, the indie leagues, or like super niche kind of players like myself. Like, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm doing a film right now about the history of gay motorcycle clubs from the 1950s to the 1980s. It's like people are like, oh, that's very exciting, but no one will touch it grant wise. And we're keeping it super small. Like, we've had other producers come in and be like, I'll raise all this money for you and I'll help you do this. And like, but it's got to be about this, or, it's like all the rules start to change. And we're like, you know what? We have our community. We have our budget is small. We know what we have to make is like back as limited. We'll get to profit faster. And again, like, once we release, we already have a massive community. We can go play at Pride festivals throughout the entire summer, and that can be our release strategy rather than going through festivals. Because festivals, festivals are great for what they are, but like for what we end up doing, like it takes more time, and it doesn't give us the value that we need.
So I have another question. Let's say you have worked on your film for years and you've given your blood and your sweat and your tears, and you're not getting into film festivals, as you're saying, and you maybe haven't had great experience with distribution in the past on your other films. Perhaps you've been kept in the red, or worst case scenario, the Film Collaborative was just had an article about how many of these smaller distribution companies have just literally gone under. Where do you begin? Because Basil, you were just saying you go to Pride festivals. Where does someone begin, and what are your suggestions for first steps for filmmakers for self-distribution in this climate? Like, where do you go? Where do you start, guys and gals?
Well, I did get to play a lot of film festivals, but I really couldn't break through to New York. I couldn't get into New York Film Festival, which was really important to me because almost half of my film takes place in New York. I wanted the subjects there. It was just a big deal for me to get New York, and so I mean, that could be a starting place for filmmakers, is like your hometown or a city that your film is connected to, and doing a screening and building an audience there. And eventually I did get a corporate sponsor to put on my own screening at the MoMI in New York. But before that sponsor came on board, I had already hashed out a plan where I would rent it out. It was very expensive, but I used my own money to rent it out. But then even if I sold out, tickets $20 or whatever, I still couldn't break even on the rental there. It's just so high. So what I decided to do was do a virtual Eventive event 1 week later, um, after the in-person, event, and that would help us break even. And then I did end up getting a sponsor, and so that was all that all worked out, and then I was able to donate a lot of the money to one of the rescues in my film, who helped get people out to the event. So it was just a win-win-win in every way. But
Did,
yeah, I mean, that could be somewhere that you start, just get that audience engaged.
did you enjoy working with Eventive? I'm doing that this weekend with my film. I'm actually screening my Tamar de Lampica film for this weekend over Eventive. Was that a good
Yeah,
experience?
we chatted about that, and overall, mostly. And the reason why I chose Eventive over some others is because for me, I wanted to geo block to the US only, and there are some other platforms that can't do that. So that's why I chose Eventive. But I also made it into a live stream screening. So the screening was live, and then we had a Q&A following afterwards. So I think that component made it more complicated. So it wasn't, that whole part wasn't quite as smooth, where there were about 12 to 20 people who for some reason didn't make it into the screening. They were in some other dark room that was in limbo, and nobody knew how to get out of it. It was just like I basically was playing tech support with people over email and text, while my virtual screening was happening.
No,
So
not
I'm
okay.
like trying to help people. So it's a lot of work, it's a headache, and there are a lot of people out there who are technically behind, and so a lot of them just don't even understand, like, oh, what am I supposed to click on, or how do I get into this? It's just you're just gonna end up being tech support. So if you're comfortable with that, then I'd say
Uh,
go for it. But it's not something I really wanted to do again.
I
where do you,
personally had a great festival run, and I saw festivals as really valuable to my uh, release strategy, and also to my, recouping, because I did almost every single film festival that I played. I negotiated a screening fee and travel and hospitality so that it wasn't costing me anything. I would just say that there was a lot of momentum building, that then the theatrical run, so that by the time that I arrived at VOD, first being, TVOD, that I didn't need to hire a publicist again. There already was a lot of, and that was important, hiring a publicist at key moments. I used to be a publicist, and so I just released The Automat in the UK this weekend on Amazon Prime Video Direct, and I did the PR for that. But at certain times I did hire a film publicist. By the time we launched on TVOD, we were able to, it all paid off. All the festivals, all the theatrical. In terms of how to get into festivals, for me it was a combination of, organic, being contacted by the festival, or sometimes I sort of had like an email template, and I would go on Film Freeway and I would find they have the contact email for the festival programmer, and I would just bust out I'd figure out which festivals I wanted to contact, and I would bust out a lot of emails asking programmers if they wanted a screener link. And I found that helpful, in terms of, I'd say, being able to then negotiate a screening fee, because I think if you just go straight through Film Freeway with everybody else, at least in my experience, I just feel like I had more leverage, and I was maybe a little less invisible by being in contact directly. But also every film is different, and my film had celebrities in it. The film I'm distributing in January it doesn't have celebrities in it. It's had a great festival run. And so I think you don't necessarily need celebrities to have a film that's, desired for festivals.
That's an interesting way. I've never heard anybody say that they actually asked a programmer beforehand whether or not they were interested in the film before they paid for the actual fee.
Oh yeah,
Getting,
absolutely.
I mean, that is just, that's a baller move.
I
man.
spent very little on submission fees for the automat. There were a few, especially like international ones, where festivals where, and automat really didn't. We didn't do very many international festivals. I found that it kind of was more of like a domestic title, but you could just spend so much money on submission fees. So it's time consuming sending all of the personalized emails, but for me it worked out.
Well, yeah, especially if you're asking for a split and you're asking them to fly you there and take care of you. My God, that's amazing. Basil, where do you start?
Well, I mean, I think for me personally, I think that, all of our films are like basically exist within like a larger conversation, right? And I think the important thing to do is figure out, like, one, do you know who the audience is for your film? Do you know where in the conversation your film exists? Like, is it part of like an ongoing news cycle? Is it like part of a celebrity conversation? Like, whatever it is, like our films have these topics that are part of these like larger conversations. And like what I try to do is be like, where is the place I can put the film that it contributes to the conversation that people want to talk about, that people want to not just talk about the film, but want to like use the film as a way to like talk about whatever they're talking about. So if it's, again, this film about this drag queen, like, okay, people are already talking about that drag queen. Now they're going to like dig into the film to use it to talk more about the drag queen or to get more information or whatever it is. So like, I think that in that case, like once you get to that point of being like, where are we in the like larger conversation that the film exists in, then you can start to plan your release strategy around it. Like, I think it's amazing. It's like, again, festivals have been great at certain times, and in other times have been things that, like for this drag queen film that we didn't need. And I think we ruffled feathers by not going to some festivals, like who are like, oh, we would love to play your film. It's a natural fit for our festival. And we're like, cool, our audience wants it sooner than the festival run, like than the festival trajectory would be. So we're just going to skip those. But again, like, I think everything has its merit, and every film has a path through that. And some of those, like, and I think that it's our job as the filmmaker to kind of just continuously assess and figure out like what the right path is for our film. And I think the more niche you are, either you have no audience or you have a very specific, like really passionate audience. And again, the bigger of the film you are, it's like either you're competing on a broader scale, I think there's a lot of kind of trade-offs to, how films are made and how they're put out there. But like, the films I try to do, the reason we try to keep them small and within an audience is because it makes it easier for us to know where our audience is, and for our audience to come and know where the film is. So like, we're in a smaller line that's a little bit more direct. Now we're not making as much money as the bigger films, but we're making enough to like sustain. So that's helpful.
Sarah has a question in the chat about festival screening fees and then how distribution for a low budget narrative would be different than a doc. In terms of screening fees, it really depends on, I'd say, what type of festival it is and whether there's a virtual component in addition to an in-person component, because I did charge per virtual view. And I'd say on the low end, which I sort of tried to avoid this. This is like if you're kind of pleading poverty with me, kind of the lowest I've ever gone was probably like 150. And then on the high end, if somebody was maybe doing virtual plus in person or multiple screenings, I think it could have gone as high as like 1,400 maybe. And so I was just really kind of customizing depending on what everybody wanted, and then plus of course if they were bringing me my hospitality.
Are you doing splits? Were you doing splits on the actual ticket sales, or just the actual flat fee?
So for festivals, a flat fee. And if it was virtual was usually they would pay a bottom amount for a certain number, and then after the festival, if I could remember to, because it was hard to follow up with everybody, I'd ask for the report, because there's a report that they receive afterwards, and then if let's say they went above the amount of virtual screens they paid for, I could invoice them for the rest of the views. But I've been told that I'm like kind of crazily kind of tough on the monetizing festivals, like, I'm just kind of, but I mean, I had to, I just, and it has been an important piece of my, like, in terms of revenue of the whole pie. I mean, in the end, I made a bunch of different licensing deals in the end. So the pie is pretty, divided, but still at this point, the biggest piece of my pie has been TVOD. All the rentals and downloads have been really important. And then after that was my TV and SVOD deal with Warner Media for the film to be on TV, Turner Classic Movies, and on HBO Max, the streaming service. And then, but all those pieces of the pie add up. So I've been kind of ruthless about, making, and not everybody pays. So you've got to chase people down. But festivals, they will sometimes tell you we don't pay screening fees, and then I say, well, I'm sorry, and then they would come back and say, okay, well, how much, so I think that sometimes they just say that, but most of them will. There were very few times where a festival ended up pulling out because I said it can't be for free. There needs to be a fee.
Is there a potential of restrictions and consideration that could impact the future of self-distributing? Let's say, do you have to call it a fundraiser before you do these premieres?
Like if you're playing your film before?
Yes, if you're going to do a private screening, does it have to be a fundraiser? And let's say, or you're not going to be able to premiere it at Telluride. You're not going to be able to premiere it.
I think if you want premieres, I think if you're offering up premiere status, then you need to make sure you're kind of withholding the idea of a premiere. And I think that that's really about public versus private screenings. I think you can do private screenings that aren't technically a premiere, but the second you start selling tickets to a public screening, I don't know, maybe there's rules that are different around fundraisers, but
yeah, I think with the fundraiser it's okay.
Yeah, but I think that if you start doing lots of fundraisers in lots of cities, then they're gonna, and they're gonna argue that you've already premiered it.
I would,
if you've
do
done
that
or you're doing
quietly.
virtual,
I don't know that it would be a website and not selling tickets. It would need to be very quiet. I think it's risky to jeopardize your premiere status.
But if you need fundraising still, right? In order to be able to even show up to the festival. So there's that. I think you're right. It's tricky. In cases of the split, how much does a theater typically give percentage wise? If you're going to be doing, are they doing 50-50? Are they doing 37, 30, 70? Is it negotiable? And what about four-walling, renting theaters out? Can you speak to the benefits of this, or how much do you charge for tickets if you are four-walling? I'm asking the numbers, particularly the numbers, because nobody talks about the numbers in our world, and that is very dangerous for us.
So my splits were mostly in the theatrical phase, and it kind of varies. On the super low end of the split was like 30%, and kind of a more standard was 40%. And on occasions where, let's say, the venue wouldn't do a regular full week run with multiple screenings per day, let's say they would only do like a one night only thing or 2 nights, then it was a 50%, or in some cases even like 60%. But that was, for me, that was really only in the theatrical phase. And then for four-walling, I'm going to be four-walling just for the opening week in New York of the film Pasong and the Shadow of Everest that I'm distributing theatrically in January, and then not doing it anywhere else, just because it's so hard to get a theater in New York City. I didn't have to do that for the Automat, so I was pretty surprised. I thought it would be easier to get a theater to book the film, but for that, anyways, so I think the strategy just has to change depending on what your circumstances are, and then just negotiate, because I'd say people in life, I try to negotiate a lot. Like when someone says, well, this is the price, and well, it doesn't hurt to, just to, I mean, maybe, I guess you could offend, I don't know, but I always try to negotiate to get it down. I haven't done it before to, self distribute a low budget narrative. So I think I would just be guessing if I told you what I thought, and I'd be happy to, I can give you my guess offline. I think at the end we'll probably, you can reach me at lisa@automatmovie.com, and I can answer questions offline. But in terms of the question in the chat about how do you market for VOD, so I have found Facebook ads to be really effective, and I also bought Facebook ads during my theatrical, and I will be buying Facebook ads again in January. And I bought Facebook ads this weekend when I released my film in the UK. So that, and then hiring in my case, I did my TVOD release right after my theatrical, so I didn't need to hire a publicist again. But I'd say depending on if there's still press left to be gotten, you might need to hire a publicist or to do that yourself. Like for my UK release this weekend, I was able to get the largest, YouTube film review show to review the film, release their review the day that the film came out on Amazon. So that really helped drive people to Amazon. So there's ways to create, and that didn't cost me anything. I didn't have to pay them. I didn't have to hire a publicist, but I had to send a lot of emails and research to find out everybody's contact info. And I got ignored, like almost for everything. You just get used to getting ignored, but that, I get ignored all the time. And I'd say even bigger distributors than us in this Zoom are getting ignored also by, I didn't realize it, but like especially for theatrical, theaters are they're inundated with requests to, I think even like the biggies, maybe Kino Lorber is probably getting, ignored. There's just so few theaters and so many films.
I agree with Lisa that social media ads was really key in my theatrical. I didn't handle my TVOD. I had a distributor handle that, so I don't really know what worked in that realm. But for theatrical, definitely, like I would soft survey people as they came to the theater, and it was always, in Facebook, Instagram, some kind of ad. No one ever said that it was a review or some kind of press. So I did have a publicist. I did do publicity for my theatrical and spent a lot on it. But unfortunately, things have changed a lot in the past couple of years. So it wasn't as fruitful as we had hoped. A lot of it was because I released in October. I didn't really have much choice or leeway around that. But that is like the busiest season, Oscar season. There's a lot of fall film festivals. The press, the staffing has shrunk, and so there's just not as many writers. They just keep complaining it's bandwidth. Also, like, I don't know, maybe they didn't like cats. I don't know, but I didn't get the results and press that I had expected 10 years ago when I had done this before. Because in the old days, if you did four wall, and for people who don't know what that means renting out a theater for a set amount of time, and you basically control, the show time and whatever. But in the past, even if you four walled a theater in New York, they kind of had to review your movie in the New York Times. That is no longer the case, and that's just in the past few years. They can definitely ignore you or decline because they just don't have the bandwidth. So without the press, how are you supposed to be able to get the word out and find your audience? So, I built up my social media following long before the theatrical. I did it during the film festival run as well, pretty hard. And so that kind of helped. And then you just get that audience to kind of be, um, you know, your cheerleaders and try to, help you spread the word as you roll your movie out there.
Yeah, I was recently told you actually have to, if you're going to do a self distribution run, you have to do, and you're going to do theaters, you have to do regionally several, at least four. You have to do different territories, or you will not get that write up that you're talking about.
I had three. I had New York, Bay Area, and Dallas. Um,
But they
but
mean
yeah,
within that area, within
yeah,
that. So four, New York, four, San Francisco, and then that's where you actually will get that write up. Um, Basil, any advice on how you handled and like how did
No,
you?
I agree with what everyone else is saying. I mean, I think that, it's like social media ads, building community on social, like again, like to me, it's like my go-to is like, how are we part of the conversation? And, typically like if we're looking for people to review the film, we're looking for people in the communities of the films we're making to review the films. And like, so again, it becomes part of a conversation that's already being had. Like, it's like if like I'm doing a project about disinformation right now, and so we really want people, we're like really kind of in the community who's talking about disinformation, because if the community who talks about disinformation talks about our project, then more people who are interested in that and who are like responding to those kind of, I guess, influencers, even if they're micro influencers in that community, they're gonna show up to see, to like engage with the project. So um yeah, it's a lot of like targeted conversations, influencer kind of like, in our case, like micro influencer kind of leading of facilitating of conversations, and then social media ads to make sure we're connecting into like the larger groups around. And it's a lot of like targeted ads for us, like hyper targeted.
How much are you paying your influencers?
I mean, we're like, I mean, this isn't like, we're not doing like kind of standard influencer deals. We're like connecting to people who have like larger social media followings than we do, who really care about the work that we're doing,
Gotcha.
and then asking them to kind of give us a shout out, and they typically do. But
That's
again, like I'm like operating at a, like I've said this 3 times, but I'm operating at a smaller scale, and that smaller scale tends to pay off. Like the films that we're making are like, you know, in the range of like $20 to $50,000 to make the films, and then we're like, a film that I made 8 years ago has brought in probably close to $500,000. So like, we're like at 10x what we put in, but like if like there's a lot of people who look at $500,000 and like, I can't even believe you're playing at that small of a thing. But like, it was amazing for us, but we also spent very little to get there.
what innovative approaches or unconventional distribution channels have you explored? You guys are talking about where these channels that you guys have kind of ended up on. Can you speak to how did you vet them? How did you know what they were they going to be profitable, and were they honest, and why did you choose at the end of the day these channels that you ended up choosing?
I'm really loving Film Hub right now as like a kind of self distribution tool for a couple of projects. We were looking for a place that we could, we didn't have to put a lot of money into it to, um, and they take a cut of like each deal they make, but the deals are pretty good, and it's like we're getting onto a bunch of channels, and like they're making money and we're making money. And like there's a lot of outlets out there that want you to do a marketing spend through them to kind of like kick off the thing, which makes sense. And they have, um, but like for like Film Hub, they didn't. I mean, now they're starting to come. Now that our films, like some of our films have some traction, they're like, "Hey, we want to redo your trailer, or we want to redo your poster," and I'm like, "No, thanks," because we
Why?
don't.
Why don't you want them to?
I just don't want to spend the money. I mean, like, I'm happy to redo the trailer or the poster, but they're like looking for the hourly on their like for their service fees, which makes, again, like for a lot of projects it makes sense. There's a project that I consulted on that recently went with like a distributor that came in and had like a pretty, like it was like a $15,000 marketing cap, like service expense that they asked for, which I think is pretty standard. And then and you know, the director was like, yeah, let's do it, and signed with them because that director, you know, wanted to like get into like, was like looking for their expertise. And we'll see if it just happened, so we'll see if it pays off in the long run. But I think there's a lot of different approaches, but Film Hub for us was like really helpful.
And are you finding that you can negotiate with them and get a cap?
Well, yeah, we didn't go for, we basically were like, we don't want the marketing services, we just want the distribution services. And with the distribution services, they had like, there was a deal, like basically it was like a 80-20 deal on the like, but what they do, they just add it to a catalog. They don't do like, so because we didn't pay for the marketing services, they're just like added to a catalog, right? And that catalog is something that the streamers can pick from, but they're not necessarily like promoting it in the catalog, right? They're just like, it's just there. So we have to go and do all the work to make sure people know about it, and then they go and pick it from the catalog. So we still have to do more work, but it's either work or money, right? So it's like, we tend to be people who are like, well, we'll just dig our heels in and learn this new aspect of things so we can do more work, so we put out less, so we're actually spending less dollars.
I think keeping the expenses low on any, you know, agreement you're presented with is really important. And I mean, the goal, I'm going to sound kind of like dark saying this, but I think the goal of most distributors is to kind of not ever pay you beyond the what you're given up front. And so I wouldn't be naive if there's a high cap, if there's a cap, whatever the cap is in the agreement, that's what they're gonna find. They're gonna find a way to bill you for that much, and to not, you know, so off the beaten path distribution channels, I would say not really for me. I'd say I've been doing it kind of traditionally. You know, there's TV, there's streaming, there's rental downloads, there's airplanes, there's cruise ships, there's educational streaming, there's DVDs. So I've been doing, and theatrical, I've been doing it more traditionally. I have heard positive things about Film Hub. I did reach out to them a couple of weeks ago because I just wanted to learn about them, and they didn't get back to me. So I'll have to go bother them so I can meet them. But
a lot of it's what you do.
There's a question in the chat about international. Yeah, I'll take your introduction to him, Basil. But there's a question about international, which I'd say that kind of falls into this topic. And my film in particular didn't seem to have too much international interest. I did get, you know, like one country, an offer from one country for a very small amount that I passed on. And I kept trying. I couldn't get an international sales agent. I couldn't get any, you know, international distributor. And so I'm going to start self-distributing one by one. You know, you got to localize, you got to get, you know, subtitles in that language. And I'm still learning because Amazon Prime Video Direct only lets you upload to a few different countries directly. It seems like to go to more countries is by invite only. So I'll have to get back to you on like how you get the invite to go to more countries, but it seems financially worthwhile to, if you have an idea of which countries you think your film could be popular in, to not leaving, you know, those cards on the table and just figuring out how to, you know, get the film up there one way or another. So I'm still figuring that out, but I would say it's just so hard to get to get a distributor these days, to get a sales agent. It's really hard. I had a really popular film in the US and I couldn't get one internationally. I will say though that I think one way I could have gotten an international distributor is if I had not chosen a US sales agent already. I had an agreement with the US sales agent, but these international distribution companies, they also want they want to be able to sell your film also in the US. So if that's not available for them, they're going to be less interested in taking your international rights. So I'm not saying I wouldn't go again with my same US sales agent, but it's just something to keep in mind that if you really want an international distributor, you might need to also keep your US sales rights so that they can have that too.
It's interesting because I was offered right out the gate $80,000 for my film in one country. I won't say what country. And I was told, don't do it, because what's going to end up happening is you're not going to get worldwide distribution. If you end up at Sundance and someone wants to buy your film, they're going to want to buy all of your distribution. They're not going to want to buy, pieces. So as you're saying, if you're not getting a sales agent and you're not acquiring distribution traditionally, then yeah, it sounds like a good idea. Start picking off countries that they like. Mye, is there channels that you can speak about that have worked well for you?
Well, I am working with an international sales agent for the first time. I was approached by them, and at the time, I was not seeing any dream deals out of the festivals. I decided to give them a shot. Like you said, they do want all the rights, including US, to be able to sell that. Um, it did turn out to be, I think, a good call for cat daddies, just because cats are broad enough that there is some international interest. I would say for most films, maybe it's not really the good route to go, because as we spoke about marketing expenses, the agent will need to charge, marketing expenses, and there was a cap, and we met their cap. They did end up also selling to like around a dozen or more territories so far. So I am seeing, I am recouping, from that, that's coming in. So, and I was really surprised. I not only sold to foreign territories, I got theatrical runs out of Poland, Japan, Germany. It's in Russia right now. Um, some of the things you don't think about is that, there is a cost for them to, subtitle those films in other languages. To some countries need to dub it. And so even though my movie has probably made over $250,000 worldwide, I'm not seeing any of that, because they have to pay the theaters, they have to pay for all the subtitling and the dubbing and the marketing, and really I'm not seeing anything back from any of that. So that's something to keep in mind. And there's some platforms also that, so for instance, like I couldn't get I have my movies out in Canada on VOD, but they can't get it on Amazon Prime until they have French subtitles. So things like that, are kind of a hiccup. So yeah, it is very, very tricky. And I also just don't think that if the international sales agent can't sell to more than, like, I don't know, 5 territories, it may not be worth it, because it just ends up they get paid, but you're not going to get there's no more money coming in after that, because there's not enough international interest.
I did work with a theatrical distributor in Canada to release my film there, but actually, in hindsight, I don't think I would have done a theatrical run in Canada because of the expenses, because of the cost of doing the theatrical. I haven't seen anything from Canada beyond, my advance. All the, they in Canada, whenever the film gets a download on Amazon, it goes to the distributor in Canada. And because we still haven't broken even on theatrical, I don't get anything. So I actually think in hindsight, the expense of the theatrical probably was not worth it. It was cool but we already had played some festivals in Canada. I think we were in some theaters in Canada and should have been happy with that. And then probably should have focused on TVOD. But, theatrical is just kind of this dream that scenario that everyone has, but I think it's important. And now I'm thinking more, financially, like, does this make financial sense to do? There's some really great questions in the chat.
We're gonna go to questions. We have Nicole's going to be moderating all the questions in just a moment. I have one last question for you guys. Short films. We have a lot of people that have made short films. And do you know anything, or have you had any experience with distributing a short film? No.
I don't, but I have noticed them more and more on Canopy, even Netflix. Um, I really do think it has to be a short film that's won a lot of awards and top tier film festivals or nominated for Academy Award. That always helps. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I don't have information on that, but I do feel like there is, for certain shorts there is a life on some of those platforms out there.
Basil, one last bit about Vimeo. When you use Vimeo, would you go back to Vimeo, and did you talk directly to them in making your deal? And were they?
No, I mean, this was just a standard thing. I mean, I don't know if I would just go. This was a while ago, so I don't know what they're doing now, so I have no idea. But like, I think that, I mean, for us, we chose Vimeo because it was like, again, they were like the only platform offering like 90%, and they weren't really thinking of themselves as like a filmmaker platform. It was like a different kind of thing. But they did have an on-demand service where you could like, people could rent or buy the film, whatever it was, and 90% went to the filmmaker. So we were like, this is great. We did all our own marketing, we did all our own promotion, we set the whole thing up. And then I remember we opened it on like a Thursday and we closed the run on like a Sunday night, just because it was like a limited like VOD engagement. And on Monday, like, someone from Vimeo called me and was like, what just happened? How did you guys make so much money? Like, what? And like, they had no clue that we were doing it, and they had no clue, like no one else had done it. And we were just, again, we had like our star of the film had like 1 million followers on social, promoted to those 1 million followers on social. People were like eager to see the film, which they had already known about. And then this was their opportunity to see the film. So it was like this kind of perfect, we had this perfect storm of like marketing and engagement, like, and then a bunch of people watched the film, and then the weekend ended, and like our numbers were pretty big. So yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's a standard thing, and I don't know how replicatable it is. And I think each film is its own unique
Yes.
strategic session. Like, I think it's for any of the films that we're talking about, like you can take bits of that knowledge and apply it to your strategic map, but I don't think that like any of us have like the map that is going to be like, you can't just like copy it and paste it onto another film.
There's no recipe that works for everything.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, Nicole, let's get to our questions, you guys. Thank you very, very much, and gals. Go for it, Nicole.
Ray Dawn has been very patiently waiting to ask a question. Let me go ahead and unmute you. If you're
Very
not...
patient, Ray.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was just wondering, I originally signed up for this and Julie was going to be speaking. And I was wondering if anyone had any experience with a series, whether that was like a web series or TV or any of that. Yeah. And then if you don't, and that's just a no, I was wondering if anyone could speak to, there was like a filmmaker magazine article recently about how kind of like bad distribution is lately for filmmakers. And it basically was looking at these case studies and saying that like the only people that are really making money are like if you're spending like less than 50,000 on a film and self-distributing. Yeah. Either one of those, preferably the first.
I don't have experience with distributing a series, but I can just say that from my current experience doing Amazon Prime Video Direct, which you can do in the US, that there is an option for series. So I would think that you could do the same thing, do that upload and then do some publicity. So, reach out to podcasts and YouTube shows and writers and, influencers, and run some Facebook ads or whichever kind of ads you want. And that I think you could use the same model for a series. But so that's just trying to, have something to say. And then your other question was about just I would say it's just so hard to sell in this current market. The streamers are doing their own original content. They're, films are coming out at Sundance and almost none of them are selling. So yeah, keep your expenses really low, or find some way to finance it that you don't need to earn that money back. Amazon asks for exclusive. No, not for Amazon Prime Video Direct. But I haven't been invited yet to upload to those other countries. So I can't speak yet for the invitation only countries, but for the Amazon Prime Video Direct lets you upload directly to the US, to the UK, to Germany, and to Japan. And then everything else is by invitation only. So I just don't know about those invitation only countries.
I would add that you just have to, like, nowadays it's like in case you don't get the dream distribution, you kind of have to spend as little as possible because it is just getting harder and harder. Like I can tell you, like, just between now and 10 years ago, just how much even TVOD has declined. Like, people are not renting movies like they used to 10 years ago. Like, everyone just wants to see what's free on the streamer. And of course, a lot of times, like for Amazon Prime, you're lucky to get 7 cents an hour.
Right, and Amazon does give you the
I mean,
option whether you
much.
want to. Sorry.
Oh, that's all.
But Amazon lets you choose whether you want, if you're doing Amazon Direct, you can either stream, so you're getting paid, cents on the hour, or you can do rental download, or you can do both. So you get to choose.
And what's the difference in that split?
So the Amazon Prime Video Direct is a 50-50 split. If you have an aggregator, they might have a different deal. When I released when I released my film in the US, it was through an aggregator, and the aggregator uploaded the film, everywhere, to, YouTube and to Vudu and to Apple, and they just have negotiated rates, which are better than what, we are, this 50-50 that we're able to get. But I will say, interestingly, like 90% of my rentals and downloads have been on Amazon. So even though I put my film up to rent and download in a lot of places, almost all of the transactions happened on Amazon. It's just huge, which I do think that that's not great for I have this theory that Amazon is trying to end rentals and downloads. Amazon is now trying to sell all the other subscription services on Amazon. And I feel like that's coming, and we got to not let that happen, because I think rentals and downloads are really important. It's a way for us to, when my film is also on HBO Max, but when Amazon sells a subscription of HBO Max on my Amazon page, which they were doing, I don't get, any commission on that sale. There was a question about how our films have helped our careers. I will kind of ditto what Basil said before about how, relationships are just so important. And some of the funders on my first film, even though, like, I'm telling you, I'm getting rejected from grants, now I made a successful film. I'm still not getting, but I will say that donors, building those relationships and are important, because those are people that believe in you and might have the ability to become more supportive in the future. So and those are people that you don't have to fill out necessarily an application for. It's kind of so I would say that's been a way that it's helped my career, because my funders have seen, okay, so she can do this, so now we believe in her even more, and we want to keep supporting her. And I mean, I think it's still to be seen for me, because I'm still, I'm so new. I'm working on my second film now, but I don't think that I don't feel like people are really handing me anything. I think over time, it's something you have to build over time. But I want to believe that over time, yes, to answer your question, I hope that over time, it will, help our careers.
Mye, do you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, my film actually helped me get some commercial gigs, so cat related commercial work. So that's kind of been helpful. And then my next feature is another cat project, and solely funded by someone who saw Cat Daddies and just wanted to do something together. So
Wow.
that was kind of like the best thing that came out, I think, of all the sweat that went into doing a self theatrical, because I think, one of the things that he said, even though he didn't come to theatrical, this investor said that he saw what I was doing, like he saw how much effort I put in, and that really, I guess, inspired him to reach out. He liked the entrepreneurship. So if anything, there's that.
The lesson is make cat movies because the cat community is amazing. It sounds like.
They
I have a
are, they have been. It's been
I have a
amazing.
friend who does horse films, and the horse community is also really amazing. And that
They really
person
are.
has like a continuously makes films. I think the career question is interesting because I think it all depends on what you're trying to do, right? It's like there's like the career part that's like, how do I sustain myself and my income based on my films? Which is, I think most people would say no. I mean, maybe some of you are, I don't know, but like, it's like I mostly work in like commercial, and and that's what sustains my income. And then the films I make, it's interesting to like be like, so I made a lot of films in like queer community. Now the films that I make now, future films I make in the queer community, there's like there's an example of that. And then I have some funders who will come back and give little bits of money, and I built relationships there. And I have, but like if I make films outside of the queer community, people are like, whoa, you're doing this now, like so I think that if I'm trying to establish myself as a generalized filmmaker, I don't know that I've done that. I've established myself as a niche filmmaker within like certain subsets of the world, and within those, like I have my relationships and I can make films and it works out nicely for me. But if I want to expand beyond that, it's like always net new career building. Yeah.
How do you balance creative vision with creating something commercial, which I think you were kind of getting into that just now,
Yeah.
where you're kind of paying the bills with the commercial, but also I think that's a wonderful way to network with other people in the film industry. You meet other producers, other people on sets that can go, oh hey, go talk to her about this and that. So
I will
yeah.
say that with the automat, I received a lot of feedback from buyers that the film was too niche, it was too small, it wasn't broad enough. And even though, it's debatable whether those things are actually true, I have actually kind of really internalized that a bit. And with this film I'm working on now, I'm trying to, how can I make this broader without, kind of compromising my vision and what I'm interested in. Um, and I am trying to, topics have come to mind for me, and I'm like, oh, but I like can't break even on that, or that's going to be so hard to sell. And so unfortunately, I mean, I think that you do have to keep those things in mind. And um, unless you can afford to take a hit, but if you want to try to make money on it, then you do have to think about that. And but I have been able to figure out something that I think is going to be an easier sell than my cafeteria documentary, and that I still am interested in also.
Sarah Bimji asked, how would you approach self-distribution for a low-budget narrative, as this can be different from documentary with an engaged community behind an issue or topic? I think we touched on it a little bit, but I wanted to give another opportunity to discuss the difference there.
I distributed 2 indie narratives, but similarly they were like within a certain subset of community, like and they were a lot smaller. I would say that narratives, like documentaries, are easier to build community around than narratives, and they're easier to inject in a conversation than a narrative. I think that narratives are notoriously harder to cast in a way that is going to like get the distribution that would make its money back. Like I think there's a lot of bigger challenges with distributing indie narratives. What I would do if I were doing an indie narrative is I would like from the scripting phase and the casting phase, all that stuff. I'd be workshopping all the like I'd basically be making a lot of decisions up front that'll help me kind of on the back end. Like the indie narratives that I distributed were like, again, super small, very cheap, super niche, like within a community that was like already connected, we could market to. And I think narratives can have that, but again, like I work in niche, so it's easier for me in that way. I think it's harder the broader you get.
Is it but also like ask if it's a genre piece, like then there is an audience that is, obviously into horror, or they're into noir. So you always got to try to find some angle, even though it's narrative and maybe, but yeah, definitely, but definitely the dramas, it's just the straight up genres with no stars. That of course will be tough.
I know some people who kind of market specifically to Lifetime with that, and I'm wondering if that might be another thing. It's like thinking about your audience and then targeting even a channel.
Yeah, but if you were going to do that, you should be talking to the channel.
Yeah.
Like if you're like, I'm going to make a Lifetime movie, you should make sure you have someone at Lifetime who wants to even consider that movie before you spend $1 beyond the screenplay.
Very good point. Yeah. And then another question from Lisa Landers. Can someone talk more about social media strategy in terms of posting frequency? Which platforms, type of content that was most useful for unpaid posts?
I think that there's not one exact correct way to do this. It really is going to depend. And I think you'll find your rhythm and you'll find what works. I sometimes will go a really long time without posting, and then I could have like a few things come up in the same week. I think knowing, the age demographic of your audience would determine whether you're like on, TikTok or Instagram versus Facebook or LinkedIn. So yeah, I try to not over post stuff that, like, I try to just post when I've got like something important to say, like, this panel was an important thing to, post on social media. I try not to send out newsletters too often because I don't like people to unsubscribe. I just try to like save up for newsletters. I try to save up a bunch of information and then I'll, blast it out.
Letters I'll do maybe twice a month. For me, I mean, I was doing mostly Facebook and Instagram. I think Instagram was just because a lot of cat people are posting on Instagram. I think that worked out best for me. TikTok I find too obnoxious and I don't understand, so like I didn't do that. But yeah, I think with Instagram, I think that I don't know, like there's just during the film festival and theatrical run, there's just always stuff to post. People love pictures, even if it was just like the name of my movie on a marquee or the poster being, somewhere. Or I mean, there's just always like I was just kind of like probably over posting, but you gotta do what you gotta do and also what you're comfortable with, but I do think that for me, it's, social media was really, really helpful. It kept people engaged. People reach out all the time to me because they feel comfortable because I am so engaged on social media. So I think it's really helpful. Hashtags, can be helpful if you have that niche.
Something in a similar vein is Maureen Maloney asked, she mentioned she liked Lisa's method of YouTube, the YouTube show to get media coverage. And she's asking about podcasts. Can you talk about how you've utilized podcasts to get the word out?
So the YouTube show actually also is a podcast. Like, if you can imagine, like, I don't have a podcast, but if you can imagine, like, as you're recording your podcast, you're also filming yourself. So, podcasts are great. And I've been a guest on a lot of podcasts, and I really wouldn't, I wouldn't be embarrassed to just reach out to, I've done a lot of outreach for cold emails or cold calls, even cold letters in the mail. I think oftentimes they'll say thank you, like, oh, thanks so much for reaching out to me.
I mean, I would, reemphasize like just community engagement, and like Lisa was saying, you just got to reach out to people and try to connect and pair up with other organizations or podcasters that um you know that is could reach your audience, and that also was really helpful on social media. I did a lot of like collaboration posts with other organizations, so then like they had something to talk about too. They want to engage with their people too, so why not with your movie or your event?
I have
Absolutely.
also gone back to all of the film festivals and some theaters that played the film when I need to push something like my DVD, for example. I one by one, again, it was really kind of time consuming, but worth it to, write personalized emails saying, hey, like my DVD just came out. Would you, put this in your newsletter and post it on social media? Oftentimes, I have found that like if you have a good news story, let's say you're featured in some major publication or whatever, if you just contact all the festival, if you contact everybody that has been a part of the showing the film, funding the film, they'll blast. It's easy to hit share on like a Facebook. Yeah, that's also good. That's good marketing, I'd say. Just asking people to share a post, and also just don't be embarrassed to ask a second time. So often, like my first email doesn't get a response, and then I'll just follow up again and say, just checking in, and even maybe a third or fourth time, and sometimes I'll eventually get a response. I know it sounds like crazy, but if there's like some opportunity you really really want, like just keep asking. I also saw somebody posted a kind of a question saying that Film Hub wanted to charge them for
Yes.
something. So, I mean,
It was a follow-up to the comment that Film Hub seems to have a little bit of, like, people are having a little bit of trouble communicating with them. Miriam Purbent said, I uploaded one of my feature film materials on Film Hub, but they reached out and informed me that I got disqualified for subtitle errors, and that they could get $700 to fix it, but they have yet to reply. Is there a way to communicate more practically with them?
Yeah, I mean, I have a contact there. I don't know if I should be handing out that contact or not. I mean, and the only reason I have that contact is because I've been in their system for a while. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. So like I went through a while ago, uploaded a couple of films, and then once those films started doing well, I started getting more like they started reaching out to me more. I don't know, like, yeah, they've been good for me, but I don't know that if they're going to be good for everybody. And I think that every outlet out there is like going to offer a service. Like I think $700 to subtitle a film is probably pretty pricey in the age of AI. Like you could probably subtitle your film for a lot cheaper than that right now. And I think there's a lot of times like when I get hit up for different service offerings, like I'll be like, can I do this myself? Can I do this cheaper? If they're looking for an if it's just looking for me to like upload a new SRT file, then I'm gonna look through and like try to figure out how to fix the errors myself and then re-upload that SRT file, like rather than paying for someone else to do it for what would be more than it would cost me to do it.
talking about things that are expensive, like a trailer can be an expensive thing to do. It's an
Sure.
important thing to have, just like having a poster is important. There are ways, there's like a whole spectrum of like, you could do it super expensive or you could do it on the cheaper side. I sort of opted, like with my trailer, I didn't want to spend the money on the like a fancy trailer editor could be like 20 grand. And I didn't want to spend that. So, I had a friend for a couple grand, help me out. And we did like a much more simple trailer. But I would say a trailer and a poster are important, marketing tools to have.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like you need a trailer, you need a poster, you need all the different poster size images for streamers and all that different, like there's a lot of different images. There's And I think that, but I think of all those marketing expenses, you know, there's people at a lot of these companies who will tell you that they're the experts on it. And that if you only like make this person bigger in the frame or this, you know, whatever it is, that somehow you're going to get more sales. And like, I don't know, maybe that's true. And maybe it's not, it's hard for me to believe that like, you know, someone who's like, oh, I'm going to take 20 grand from you and make this trailer and it's going to get you 20 grand worth of sales. Like, it's hard for me to believe that, you know, for the films that I do. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll do it for 1,000 and just take the gamble on like whether that 1,000 pays off. And I'll never know if I could have made an extra 20 grand if I spent 20 grand on this trailer. Like so I just don't know. Like, you know, I think that, you know, I've been reading like the Netflix technology blog, and a lot of the stuff that they do, a lot of the image selection they do, a lot of the trailer, so like kind of scene selection they do is all automated. And it's all automated based on the systems that they have created and based on the data that they have coming in. And I think that for any one individual to be able to be like, oh, I can do what they like, can like that I can select the right trailer with all the right images that gets the right amount of eyeballs to it. I think that's a really tricky thing to do in this day and age. So I don't know that the person at this distribution company has any more or less expertise than I have. And maybe they do. Again, I don't know. But for me, it's always cost. Like, is the cost worth it? Do I actually have the money to put into it? Am I willing to put more money into my film by, you know, paying for someone to like put a new person on my poster or whatever? Like, I can easily try that, you know? So a lot of times when someone comes to me and says, I want to pay you to make a new poster, I'm like, well, what do you think's wrong with my poster? And maybe I can just do it without me paying you because I don't really want to invest any more cash in this project.
Yeah, I second that mentality of, is this really necessary?
Have any of you been able to monetize your films with products or speaking fees?
Yeah, so I do receive speaking fees, and I'm like, I will reach out to, like, if I hear about a good speaking opportunity where they like, I'll reach out and kind of initiate. And the same with screenings or speaking. And then I sell DVDs and posters. But I will say that DVDs are, it's only so much money you can make from a DVD. But I'm pleased to say that my share of my DVD now has been like $12,000. It's not terrible. I mean, that's sell 12, and that's just my, Target gets their portion too. Best Buy gets their portion too. So there is still a market for DVDs. And I've heard a variety of thinking about DVDs. Like, I decided not to do my DVD myself. I decided to make a DVD deal. I've heard people say you shouldn't make a DVD deal. You should just do DVDs yourself so that you can make more. So I really don't know what the right answer is to that. But like, at the time that I made my DVD deal, I was just like so swamped doing, traveling the country, promoting my film. And it was just like, it took one thing off my plate, and they did it, making it look really professional, and they got it onto all the different stores online. So
we're down to
anyone else have any merch? Like, Mye, did you do any like
I have a lot of merch, but a lot of it was giveaways. I sell online. I can't say you can make a killing off of merch. I could have made a killing if I had DVDs with me selling at film festivals and other screenings, but I just really couldn't. I just didn't want to lug all that stuff. I've done it before, and it's just so much work, and I don't have anyone to help me. So
yeah, I made a conscious decision to not bring DVDs around with me because I didn't want to. I just tell people all the time, like, oh, do you have DVDs? And I'm just like, you can get it online, because I just also like in terms of my, I think it's different. Like for you might have more incentives to schlep the DVD if, like, I have to I only get a portion of the proceeds of the DVD. So for me to be schlepping it around to get that little amount.
Thank you all so much for joining us at Women in Film San Francisco Bay Area today, and for our panel for sharing your valuable insights with our members. Lisa, I really would like to especially thank you for coming out and replacing John. And John, we hope you're feeling better. Your presence and your expertise have truly enriched the event. And we really, our community really appreciates it because we're in a time right now of a lot of change. And we really need some transparency and
Yeah.
some guidance. So,
Well, John is a professional that filmmakers will hire. He's really an expert. But I just I don't see anything wrong with like being a hack, like the three of us, and just doing it yourself. So,
well, and you become experts. So, you really are experts at what you do. The more you do it, you really are an expert. So, don't minimize that. You really are, and you are what you believe you are. So, at this point, you guys are because you're doing it and you're making a lot of money and you're getting your with
I don't know about a lot of money.
well with the $250,000
We're making money. We're trying.
$250,000 that you made on your film, actually, I think is a lot of money because a lot of filmmakers get distribution deals and they never see that kind of money. So I want to congratulate everybody, and I do think you're all specialists and special. So thanks for being here. And Nicole, can you just tell us a little bit about what's coming up event-wise?
Yes, also I wanted to take an opportunity to thank our community partners. Thank you to our community partners. We've got all their logos here. They've been wonderfully supportive and helped get the word out about our event. And then also I wanted to tell you about, we are looking at Unos Dos Tacos for the year-end mixer here in San Francisco. It's close to all public transportation, and it is a great spot for travelers to explore the city. We also have a wonderful event in the works in January, but in February, we also have, we'll be hosting an invigorating virtual mixer in partnership with New York Women in Film and Television. And that's about it. Let me pass back to Julie.
So thanks everybody for coming today. And we appreciate all of our members and our board. So our board, we couldn't be doing this without our board members. And I just and all of these amazing attendees today. So thank you all for coming.